bitches! It's me, the one, the only one, the god of Kingdom Come, it's Andy. And welcome to Movie Night with Andy and Gabe. And with me always is my proverbial sparring partner, Gabe.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be back. I've been gone for a long time, and so has Andrew. And one of these days, I might not be your proverbial sparring partner because as soon as we meet up, we've decided that we want to spar because Andrew does martial arts, and I think that would be fun for me to just flail around and do random shit that will probably be very easily countered and picked up upon. Anyway, that's off topic because where we're at now is Andy is back, and that's exciting. And it's October, and that's exciting because it's spooky month. Anything spooky going on with you recently in the fucking 300 years we've been gone?
Anything spooky going on with me? Well, I am currently recording this out of Joe Biden's closet. I'm just making sure that he's actually gone. I've got state secrets that I'm going to be dispelling across the coming videos. So the spookiest thing is there has been no change in our schedule. We recorded Review for the Exorcist last Halloween.
Yeah, you're right. And that was the last thing we ever That's true. I didn't think about that.
Now, some people say that movie is cursed.
Well, I mean, it's hard to argue with that at this stage.
We decided to re-record it because we had one of those Gabriel moments, a pro-Gabriel moment, if you will, where we recorded the episode and Gabriel didn't really like The Exorcist. And then I got a message from him like a week later, and Gabe goes, you know what, I changed my mind. I think that's one of the best films I've ever seen. Like, he had a complete turnaround. And I think with you especially, Gabe, that can be the disadvantage of doing the review the week after you see the film. Because sometimes it takes longer. Like, you had a turnaround on Mulholland Drive, like, a little while after you saw it. But we managed to catch on to that in time with the review.
No, it's really true. Sometimes, not always, sometimes a movie is just a shit movie that I don't like, but sometimes it really does sometimes I really do need to just sit with a movie for a while and let it absorb into my life force. And I'll tell you, this movie, more than most, absorbed into my life force.
Well, when we talked about Sorcerer, you said to me, I don't think that you would have shown me Sorcerer as an introduction to William Friedkin, were it not for just the circumstances of us doing this show and you wanting to talk about it. And I thought you was absolutely right. I would have shown you The Exorcist. And you love Sorcerer.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised that you loved Sorcerer because you didn't like Papillon. So
yes,
this is another one of those 70s director does what he wants films. If you don't know the premise of The Exorcist, I'll give you the very, very brief rundown, which is a famous actress's daughter becomes possessed by a demon, and the film deals with the ambiguity and treatment of trying to treat this girl using various psychological techniques and therapy until finally an exorcist is required. And the film is really about, in my opinion, the priest, Damien Karras, kind of regaining his faith. That's the Cliff Notes version. I'm going to fully hand the reins to you, Gabriel, because I really want to know what you thought about it. This was in a rare twist. This was your pick, even though it was a film you hadn't seen and I had. So
it was a complete turnaround, and actually, it was your pick when we recorded this last time, and now it's mine. How do you like that? Yeah. So there's a lot of things that deeply, deeply moved and impressed me about this movie. I think the most relevant, the thing that really stood out to me the most was I didn't think it was scary. And that turned it from a horror movie into just a movie about heroes to me.
Sure.
That thing that was possessing that little girl was of the villain of the movie to me. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't something like, oh God, I'm scared. I don't want to see this. It was the villain of the movie. And those two men were the heroes, and I was rooting for them. I wanted that insipid, disgusting thing out of that child. And it emotionally attached me to those two people's efforts in a way that that I can't really attribute to any other movie like that. And the character of Karis was one of my. It's probably the best depiction of a priest and his partner, whose name escapes me for some reason, but the main priest, Father Marin. That's right. Though that was the thing that really stood out in that sense to me was they got the Catholicism right. And being a possibly former, possibly current, I don't really know these days, but Catholic myself, and being a Catholic convert, so I know a lot of the ins and outs of it. Hollywood always gets that wrong. Hollywood always get the when the person walks into the confessional, they get what they say wrong. They get what the priest says wrong. Because most people who are not Catholic probably get their understanding of the Catholicism from Hollywood and TV and whatnot. And a lot of it's wrong. So, and they got the Catholicism absolutely right. They got what was said right. They got the fact that 99.9% of the supposed demonic possessions are deemed to be not demonic possessions by the Catholic Church. That's absolutely true. Exorcism and affirming a demonic possession is extremely rare. The Catholic Church approaches those claims with skepticism, which I've always been really impressed with. And they got that right. The fact that priests might be known to hang out in a bar or two and just be a normal person, and to where being a priest is kind of their job in addition to their vocation, their spiritual vocation, was absolutely true. The fact that at the end of the movie, the fact that you can give last rites to someone who's dying is absolutely true. So they got the Catholicism right. But I want to return to what I said before. The fact that this didn't scare me actually worked in the movie's favor, because when I see a horror movie and I'm really, really scared, it's actually kind of distracting. The thing that's driving me through the movie is this tension that the scary part is going to happen. I didn't get that from this. I just was invested in them defeating this despicable, disgusting creature in this innocent child.
I think that with a lot of horror films, if you're not scared, there isn't much of a film to enjoy. Whereas this works as well as a drama. It's not shot like a horror film. It's not a creepy, disturbing, unsettling house with peeling wallpaper. I think it's a normal house, normal people.
Yeah.
They have lives outside of it, and when you take away the scares, it's a very compelling psychological drama. When the scares work for you, well, it works on two levels. But I think that what this film got right, and subsequent films about exorcisms haven't really done, in my opinion, is it's not just there's a demon, let's scare it out, it makes her do crazy bad things. It has personality. The demon is a character.
Yeah.
And what I like, and when we last tried to record this, I said that this was the Shawn Michaels Bret Hart ladder match of Exorcist films.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember you saying that, and that's a very good analogy. That's a very good analogy.
Because I thought that Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart in the first ladder match in WWE was just going to be a normal match, and at the end one of them runs up a ladder. But they did everything you could think of with that ladder. And I now understand that it was not the first ladder match in history, but still, they did everything they could. I haven't seen an Exorcist inspired film take an angle that The Exorcist didn't cover. Questioning faith, The Exorcist did it. A compelling antagonist, The Exorcist did it. Debating whether or not she's even possessed or whether it could be a psychological problem, The Exorcist did it. That's one of the things that works so well about The Exorcist, is that the film treats the idea of her being possessed with a lot of skepticism. They rule out every possibility they can until they go, fuck it, call a priest.
And that's really true. And that was such a good approach. The only other film that I can think of, because I've seen a lot of exorcism, demon possession moves, a strangely lot of them. The Exorcism of Emily Rose tried to do that. They tried to do, and I think they didn't do it. I thought they did it kind of badly.
Is this the one with the court?
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Right.
And it was okay, but this one definitely, it was definitely the more authentic of the two, and just one of the most authentic movies, because it wasn't really. It was more about good versus evil and reclaiming and finding one's faith again, or even not finding one's faith, just finding that, or finding one's faith again through sacrificing for somebody else, which is very profound. It just, you're absolutely right. It just did an excellent job, and it did it in a way that has yet to be replicated by copycats.
There's 3 versions of The Exorcist in my mind. There's the original novel, and the original novel is my favourite book. There's this film, and this is one of my favourite films. And then there was the West End play, which is good. And they all tell the same story. They all stick very faithfully. But what I think is really interesting is because it wasn't some sort of sleazy, no one really paid attention novel that got turned into a film like Jaws or like Die Hard or something like that. The Exorcist novel is just one of the best novels, and William Peter Blatty wrote the screenplay for this as well. So with the exception of one plot point that I guess they cut for time, it's pretty much identical. And what I think is interesting is William Peter Blatty, it's not going to surprise you, he was Catholic.
Yeah.
William Friedkin don't believe in anything. And
right.
I think this makes for a nice balance. But what really impresses me about the novel is as reasonable as the film is when it comes to the skepticism. It's not like William Friedkin came in and went, hey, what if we hush the god a bit? The novel is really, really restrained on it. And the butler, he is a suspect for the murders that Reagan commits. And one of the last things that happens in the book is finally, as the detective, who doesn't get a ton to do in the movie, but in the book, he's investigating the butler because he thinks he was the one that killed that film director. They had an argument and he was drunkenly abusing him. So in retaliation, he killed that guy. Makes sense. Another bit of plausible deniability when it comes to her being possessed. And finally, just before that final act with the possession, they rule it out. He had a solid alibi. He didn't do it.
Yeah.
So the book actually goes into it, I suppose, a little bit more with those sort of skeptical angles. But that's something I do really like, especially because, and there's a film that I want to talk about in the future. We've got my friend Mariana from the Morbid Zoo who'll be coming on and joining us, and there's a film that we're going to talk about that's going to have a lot of skepticism stuff that I'm like, but usually skepticism in horror films doesn't really work because the skeptic only exists to be proven wrong. And it's
wrong,
like,
yeah,
and it's always like, sort of like, oh, well, this person thought they knew everything, and it's like, well, in real life, that skeptic would have been absolutely fucking correct. So
99.9% of the time, and the fact that the fact I can't, I'll say it again just because it impressed me so much. The demon possession conclusion was an absolute last resort, and that's absolutely accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and because the Father Karras, who is the main character, in my opinion, he says, look, yeah, I'm a priest, yes, but I'm also a psychiatrist.
Right.
I know what the brain can do, and saying that you're possessed by the devil is not uncommon. This is something a lot of people with mental health problems claim to be. So
yes,
he's very dismissive of it at first.
Mm-hmm.
But I think,
and that's absolutely true. The church does have psychiatrists and people. That's the thing too, is that like, we talked about this. I brought this up last time. It reminded me of, there was a priest. Unfortunately, he's died now, but there was a priest named Father George Coyne. He actually did an interview with Richard Dawkins, and he was the head of the Vatican Observatory. And he was countering this other priest who was sort of denying evolution, which is rare in Catholicism. The Catholic Church doesn't have an official position on evolution. But in any event, he was countering that. And he was doing that from a position of expertise because he's a scientist. And the thing that stands out to me about that is that the Vatican Observatory is a real observatory with real astronomers who just happen to also be priests sometimes. So the idea that this person was a priest but also a psychiatrist is absolutely accurate too.
Yeah, and it's a nice sort of depiction to show them as, normal, everyday people. Like, obviously, I don't reveal too much about people in my life on this show, but there is a martial artist who I work closely with now, who is a devout Church of England Christian who is training to be ordained as a vicar, which is, the equivalent of the priest, who literally does prayers on a rosary while the other people are training. He sits there, he does prayers on a rosary and all that work. He's a normal guy. And that doesn't always get captured in films. So you get sort of that holier than thou or sort of wise kind of thing,
or preachy, or a lot of the time what Hollywood will depict is this sort of evangelical type, which is actually a minority thread in Christianity. The only reason that it's so prevalent in media and that it comes to mind so often is because they're really loud. Yeah, that's right. The people who the silent majority don't really talk about stuff. They just live. They just incorporate these things into their lives. It's what I call part of the balanced breakfast of one's life. You have your spiritual life, your work life, your home life, your family life, and those things all get incorporated, as opposed to, not to cast any aspersions, but your typical evangelical will be about one thing and one thing only in life.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so here's my main thesis with The Exorcist for why I think it works. And I want to bounce this off of you, really.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I think subsequent films, including films in the Exorcist franchise, which came out right after we did our first attempt at recording this before our long hiatus, which, of course, is a piece of shit. What they don't get is this original film was called The Exorcist. It wasn't called The Exorcism. It wasn't called The Possession. It was called The Exorcist. It's about him. And I think a lot of people think that it's Father Merrin that they're referring to. Or, oh, no, sorry, it might be Father Lancaster. There's 3 fathers, and I can't remember the name of the older priest. But
yeah, I can't either for some reason, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, a lot of people say that it's him, that the title refers to him, and no, it doesn't. The title refers to Karras.
Of course it's Karras. Of course it's Karras. He's the in my view, and you seem to have taken the same view. He's the focal point of the whole action. It's about him, the possession that he encounters and deals with and suffers personal loss from is part of his arc. It's what turns him around. It's his redemption story.
Yeah, because he's got that baggage because, you know, he didn't take proper care of his mum, and that brings shame on him, and the demon, of course, uses that against him. And, you know, like, I know initially there's a lot of focus on Reagan's mum, whose name has escaped me again. I'm doing bad with the name today.
Reagan's mum. I am too. It's been a while, right?
Yeah. So Reagan's mum, she takes a lot of the focus early on as she's trying desperately to get help. But it's not her story. Her motivation is, I want to save my daughter. There is no conflict within her as a character.
No, she's the catalyst for getting Karras into the movie.
Yes, and when the time comes to do the exorcism, which, by the way, a little detail for those who might be curious, in the book, the exorcism takes place over the course of a couple weeks, like how they often are depicted as happening in real life. They take place over the weeks. For the film, they had like one big showdown. I get it. It's not a knock on the film.
Yeah.
It's a great scene. It's a great finale. But they just get her out of there for that final act of the film because she's not a priest. So she doesn't need to be there. Yeah. And I've not seen the film, but I heard Red Letter Media talk about the new one, where the film dobs in the patriarchy as the reason that she wasn't allowed in there. And it's like, no.
What?
Yeah, she goes, they didn't let me in the room when they were doing the exorcism because of their Catholic patriarchy. It's actual line from her. And it's like, I mean, I wouldn't let you fix a car. I wouldn't let you fix a car like when there's 2 mechanics doing the job. Just go sit in the back and have it like come on.
Okay, there's a movie. You could make a movie about the patriarchal nature of the Catholic Church and its social. That's not that movie. That has nothing to do with white. That has nothing to do with anything. Jesus Christ.
The Catholics, look, considering the reputation Catholic priests have today, this movie is fucking spotless when it comes to depicting the Catholics. Like, they're all nice. They're all reasonable. You don't have any crazy Catholics. There's no like weird like child jokes or anything like that. It is immaculate, and people are like, this film is satanic. How could anyone this film, like, the fact that people got so annoyed about this film being satanic and against God and people it should be banned and things like that is like, watch the film. This is the pro-Catholic film. I've never seen a film more pro-Catholic. Pro-God. Like, you're like, God is like good and the devil is really, really horrible and evil. And it was directed by an atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's part of what makes it good. Yeah,
so I think how does this stack up to you for Sorcerer? Like, sorry, I'm going to try that again. How does this compare to you to the other film we talked about, Sorcerer, by William Friedkin? Because Sorcerer was the famous Friedkin flop that you went, this is one of the best films I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The Exorcist is the film you think of when you think of William Friedkin.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good question. Obviously, they're extremely different movies. They're very character driven. So obviously, they're very different movies. I didn't feel that The Exorcist was an ensemble the way that Sorcerer was. There weren't any unintentionally funny parts, unfortunately, in Exorcist. But I really like the way that this guy leans toward character studies and character-driven stories, and both films deal with redemption, though, and so that's interesting, which is one of my favorite subjects. Adam Sessler once said of BioShock Infinite, he was talking about the end of BioShock Infinite, which, spoilers, if you haven't played BioShock Infinite and you want to experience the story for yourself, just cover your ears when I say this. But at the end of that game, it turns out that the character that you play sold his daughter to pay off a gambling debt. And that sort of transcended multiple, like there was no version of events that he could change. And Adam Sessler, when reviewing that, said that the game depicts the fact that there are some things that you just can't really atone for. And that's always been a really interesting issue for me. And both Sorcerer and Exorcist deal with that. Obviously, they're both spectacularly directed. They're both spectacularly shot. They're both incredibly impressive in terms of visuals and acting and everything. So, yeah, I'd say he's definitely, having seen 2 films from him, he's definitely 2 for 2. And these both movies became 2 of my favorite movies.
So, my follow-up question is, what was your one? Because usually with The Exorcist, you find that so many people are spoiled by the pop culture osmosis of The Exorcist. Like you said, you didn't know if you'd be able to take it seriously after seeing it parodied so many times. Now, I saw this film for the very first time, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, in a cinema for a special Halloween screening. And I'd never seen it before, but I knew of it. My friend I was with hadn't seen it before, but, he knew the head spin, stuff like that. And he shat himself when she did the crab walk down the stairs, which was one that I knew about. What was it seems like everyone has that one scare that does get them where they go, oh, fuck. And it's like the one bit that slipped past them on the pop culture osmosis train. Like, did you have one?
I did, and it was the crab walk down the stairs because I hadn't seen that, and it was so abrupt that it's exactly how you do a scene like that. It was so abrupt that that was the one big scare that I got out of it, just because it's so unnatural looking and it was so, as I say, abrupt. It's funny you mention the cultural osmosis of the film, because that happened to me. I think I've mentioned this before on this show, but I'll bring it up again. That happened to me with The Godfather. I can't watch The Godfather because I feel like I've seen a shot-for-shot reconstruction of that movie in The Simpsons and Family Guy and 10 million other things. I feel like there is a shot-for-shot remake of that movie out in the world. If you take all the parodies that have ever been made, I think you could reconstruct that movie through different parodies in different media. And so the Horsehead, I know what's coming. I can't help but think of, Animaniacs when the guys taught. There's just been so many parodies of, and I can't watch that movie in a serious way. That didn't happen to me for The Exorcist, because the only thing that anybody ever bothered to parody was the head spinning thing and her saying, like, shove it up your fucking ass or something like that, and talking
puking
in that voice. But yeah, the puking stuff. Yeah, exactly. But in fact, there was a movie It was starring Leslie Nielsen of all people. It was a parody of The Exorcist by pretending to be a sequel to The Exorcist, and it starred the little girl who, well, she was a woman but I can't remember her name, but it starred her, and she played
Linda
the same
Blair.
character. Linda Blair. It starred Linda Blair, and it was a parody sequel to The Exorcist, and it was absolutely fucking horrible. I don't know why I've seen it as many times as I was. It was abysmally bad. But there was an actual whole parody sequel of that movie. But all they did, again, was just the head spinning and the puking and the fuck you, you fucking whatever, and all that. And that's all it was. What I didn't know and didn't expect was everything else, which was really the driving force of the movie, which was the characters and the relationships between them and their relationships with, God and their faith and all that.
It's funny you say about a parody sequel, because I think a lot of people feel that The Exorcist 2 was a parody sequel starring Linda Blair.
I do want to take some time at the end of this to talk about Exorcist 3, because I have seen it.
Oh, you've seen it? Okay, cool.
I've seen it, and friend of the show, Chris, showed it to me, and I have some thoughts about it that might be interesting. It could never. I don't think it could ever be a full review or discussion, but it's worth putting in at the end. So we'll stay tuned for that.
Before we do that, can we just put some respect on Linda Blair's name? We talk a lot about, like in the media, like great child actors, like how good the kids from Stranger Things are, and they are really good, or how great the child performances in E.T. are, and they are really good. Linda Blair in The Exorcist is like the best child performance ever.
It is, but I feel like, wasn't she like 17 when she did that? I feel like she was...
Nope.
Oh, really?
No, she was about 13, 14. In fact, the process for auditioning William Friedkin was, he went, that you're going to have to say some pretty bad words, and we need you to be comfortable with saying these pretty naughty words. And she went, oh, you mean like cunt? And he was like, yeah, she's perfect. She's perfect.
Oh, good. Oh, man, that's funny. That's too funny. How interesting.
Yeah, insanely good performance.
Yeah, one of the best I've ever seen. And the fact that she was able to convey, there was a different person inside of her. And I mean, when the human being, Linda Blair, was laying in that bed and the actor called action, her acting ability created a different person. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah, there was a different person inside of her. Yeah. She felt that. She created that. And I really have never seen a child actor do. Now that you tell me how young she was, I really have never seen a child. Not Haley Joel Osment, not anybody. That was something that pros learn how to do over the course of a long career, and she did it.
Just a prodigy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just a prodigy. So I am curious. Then a little bit. I am curious, what do you think of Exorcist 3? Okay,
so Exorcist 3 was starring one of my favorite actors. Oh my God, really? Am I really blanking? George C. Scott.
Where am I?
Where the hell am I? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, General Patton himself. So that was an absolute treat to see. It stars what most people know as, I think he was the voice of Chucky.
Yes,
wasn't he? Yeah. So that's right. And most people know him as the voice of Chucky. Apart from that, people know him as Grima Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings, but I'll always remember him as Mr. Suitor from Star Trek Voyager, a character a Starfleet officer or Maquis or whatever, who murdered someone on that ship, and they had to deal with that. And of course, that was way too interesting for those writers, so they killed him off and got rid of that really quickly, because, God, you don't want anything interesting happening on that show. But Anyway, so the cast was absolutely wonderful. That just to be random about it, it has one of the most disturbing, frightening crawling on the ceiling scenes I've ever seen in my life, because it's totally silent.
The
It
hospital scene as
came,
well.
yeah, the hospital scene. Yeah.
Yep.
It came so close to being a really, really good sequel, and maybe it even was a really, really good sequel. I'll tell you the problem I had with it, though. So the movie it's kind of a whodunit. There's a bunch of murders. There's a serial killer, and again, that skepticism element is there, where they're asking if this serial killer is actually possessed or if he's just bullshitting, or if that's part of his shtick. They find the serial killer, and spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen this, it turns out that the serial killer is possessed by a demon who has the soul of Karis inside of him somehow, and the dialogue with that killer is all, in my opinion, fan service. It just turned into fan service about the first movie. They should not have brought up the Karis character in that film. They should not have made getting him out of that demon a focal point in the movie. They should not have made callbacks to the first movie, except to say, hey, there was a possession back then. I felt like if that movie had been its own thing, that would have been so much better focus. I felt like that distracted from the detective element. It distracted from the whodunit, because now it's not about whether or not this is a real demon-possessed person and what to do about that. Now it's about the guy from the other movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's more jarring because of the recasts from the original Exorcist to Exorcist 3, because obviously the Exorcist 2 was a cash grab sequel. The Exorcist 3 Legion is actually an adaptation of the second book called Legion.
That's right. That's right.
William Peter Blatty, who wrote the novel and wrote the screenplay for the original Exorcist film, directed this one. But the actors who played the detective and the same father that was Karis's friend who reads him his last rites, those are the main characters of The Exorcist 3, and neither of them are played by the actors from the original film, which already makes it feel quite detached. So then when sort of fan servicey stuff starts coming in, and I haven't read the second book, so I don't know. Maybe it's done better in that, or maybe it's not in that at all. I really don't know, but that makes it more unusual.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Although, what a performance!
Well, obviously, I mean that's always going to be true. I just felt that, boy, it would have been what a performance if he was a unique, original character and not just a vessel, no pun intended, not just a vessel to do callbacks. That's what bothered me about it. It was a good sequel. I liked it. There was a lot of good stuff there, but I just felt that really held it back. There's the instinct to do those callbacks, I felt, hurt it.
Well, we're back again, and next time there won't be a year's fucking wait in between our videos. For everyone that has come back, thank you. No,
yeah,
Gabriel,
thanks everybody.
No, I means there won't be another year break. If I can do this out of Joe Biden's wardrobe right now, while the secret security, like I'm literally seeing the sneaky deals he's making with Kamala Harris right now through the crack, and they're looking to see right now, is there someone in there? I'm sure I can hear loud talking coming from the. If I can do that, and this, we can do it.
Yeah. You know what? You've convinced me. I agree with you. There will not be another year break. Next time, we will be talking about insert film here.
Make 'em laugh, make 'em laugh.
I have very mixed feelings about that movie, about Singing in the Rain. I think half those songs could have got cut.
It's definitely not my type of musical, I can say that. I'm not as, it's weird. I do like some sort of jazz and swing and things like that, but that sort of show tune musical's never really done it for me.
I feel like a lot of this, it really, the best part of that movie was Lena Lamont. She was hysterical. She was one of the funniest characters, I think, in anything. And everything else, just all the other characters were just boring and uninteresting to me. And half those songs definitely should have got cut. What was I going to tell you? I was going to tell you something either funny or interesting. I don't know. Fuck it.
Oh, fuck it. See you later, guys.
Bye.